Hey guys, Uncle Ted, your ice cream alchemist with ice cream every day, and it's a hot one here in Wisconsin, but I tell you, I got something to cool us off. This is dark chocolate cashew butter sorbetto. It doesn't have any dairy in it at all. And let me tell you, it's got a rich dark chocolate flavor to it. I'm going to show you how to make this. It's incredibly simple, and really just take some basic ingredients, nothing fancy. And then you can make this for anybody who they can't have dairy, they don't want dairy, whatever. But let me tell you, this stuff is good. Keep watching. Alright, so let's go over the ingredients. So I'm going to be using 2 cups of water, and then I'll have another cup of water held back for the end. And you'll see what I do with that here in a minute. And then I'm going to have 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And I'm going to use 1/8 of a teaspoon of guar gum. This is 1.5 cups of sugar, and this is 1 cup of dark unsweetened cocoa. Now keep in mind that you can use Dutch if you want, and you can use other forms, as long as it's a good cocoa that's unsweetened. Then what I've got here is dark chocolate. Now this is 86% cacao, which means it's going to have very little sugar. It's Ghirardelli, so they call it intense dark, and essentially I'll be using 2 bars of this because I need 6 ounces because I'm making a double batch, and so these are a little over 3 ounces each. And then what I've got here is my cashew butter. Now normally you can use peanut butter on this, but I'm making this for somebody who loves cashews. I mean, who doesn't, right? So what I'm doing is I'm using cashew butter. I'm going to be using roughly 4 tablespoons of this, maybe a little more. And then a little pinch of salt. Be very careful with that because you really don't want to oversalt this, but it does need a little bit of salt in it. So if your cashew butter has a lot of salt in it, then go ahead and ignore using any extra salt. And that, folks, is it, really. That is it. That's all we need to make our dark chocolate cashew butter sorbetto. One of the first things that I want to do when I get started here is I actually want to get this cut up into smaller pieces. This way, when I need it, it's ready to go. And it's actually fairly warm out right now, so this is soft. Even though this is a dark chocolate and has a higher melting point, this is actually fairly soft. And so this will actually cut relatively simple. And all I want to do is get this chopped up into smaller pieces so that when the time comes and I add it, it will cut up and melt down faster, and it'll take a lot less time because you don't want clumps of chocolate in this. That's it. Alright, next what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn our pan on medium. We're going to add our 2 cups of water. Like I said, I am making a double batch. Normally it'd be a cup, but I'm doing a double batch here. And then we're going to go ahead and add our sugar. And then we are going to add our cocoa powder. Now it's at this point, if you needed to, that you would put a pinch of salt in here. The cashew butter that I have doesn't have a lot of salt, but it's got a little bit. So I'm just going to put about 12 salt crystals in there, if that makes any sense. You'd be amazed at how much salt can influence flavors. And it doesn't take a lot. So when you're doing this, don't over salt it. You know, I carefully felt out about 12 crystals, put them in there, and boom, off we go. Now I'm going to whisk this. By the way, that smoke is because I cleaned my stove, and yeah, I must have left something on there. Oh well, that's alright. That's what happens when you use electric burners. But I am just going to whisk this, make sure everything gets properly mixed in. As this heats up, it'll mix in more easily, because I used cold water when I put it in there. And so it'll take some time. Once it all heats up, then it'll mix in just fine. And I'm going to heat this until it boils. Once it gets to the boiling point and it starts to boil up, I'll take it off the heat and add the rest of my stuff. One thing to keep in mind when you work with chocolate is that burned or scorched chocolate is god-awful, and it happens fast. So you got to keep a watchful eye on this. Keep it moving, keep stirring, and be very careful, because trust me on this, you really don't want to scorch this, because then you got to throw it in the garbage and start all over again. Once you scorch it, it's no good for anything. Even the dog won't like it. You can't give dogs chocolate anyway. They'd sniff it and say, hell no boss, I ain't eating that. Alright, so now it's just starting to get to that boiling point, and I am going to turn this off. It has had enough heat. And actually, since this is an electric burner, and I don't want this to keep on cooking, I'm actually going to take this off the heat. I'm going to set this right here between my burners. Because now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add my diced up chocolate. And then all I gotta do is just stir. This stuff is already hot, the chocolate's been cut in small pieces. It's relatively warm out in my kitchen right now anyway. So I am just gonna stir this until it is all completely melted. That should only take a couple minutes. Once all that chocolate is melted, then I'm gonna go ahead and add our cashew butter. Now the person I'm making this for loves cashews. So normally, yeah, I would go ahead and put in, 4 tablespoons. But they love cashews, so I'm going to put in a little bit extra. The stuff was incredibly expensive. And so, yeah, this is love. Alright? When you start putting in good stuff in your ice cream, and you're spending the money, and you don't care how much it costs, that's love. That's why we do this sort of thing, right? That's why we make ice cream. It's not so we can gorge ourselves, it's so we can give things to our people we care about. There are people in this world that I care deeply for. They get the best out of me. And if somebody comes to me and says, I need something to give to my man, then by golly, they're going to get the best I can offer. Because I know how important it is. That, and I kind of made this as a shout out to somebody. And she's very cool, and I just wanted to make something that she might enjoy, even though she's like 5,000 miles away and I'll never meet her. But she ever decides to make this on her own, she has the recipe. Once you have your cashew butter thoroughly incorporated and you've done all your stirring and whisking and everything, and you've got it all mixed in, you're going to add 1 cup of water along with your vanilla. Of course, in my case, fake vanilla, because that's what I got. Got it from the Amish. Works pretty good. The Amish, they got good stuff, so I use what the Amish use. Works out pretty well that way. And now, we're going to keep whisking some more. Alright, so last step here. Now we've got everything incorporated and it's cooled down a wee bit. What we're going to do is we're going to put it in this blender here. And I'm going to try and do it without making a mess. Wish me luck. Ah, crap. So I overfilled my blender, which means if I don't do this right, I am going to have a giant mess on my hands. Yay me. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour out half of it and then redo. Alright, I have successfully poured out half. And now, go ahead and blend it. I only want to blend it for about 15-20 seconds. Once you got it blended, then we're going to go ahead and put it in our heat-safe bowl. And as I said, I'm going to have to do this in 2 batches. So I'm making a double batch. And it never occurred to me that, you know, if you're making a double batch, you're going to need to do 2 of these. But, hey, live and learn, right? I'd like to say something witty about how I make mistakes so you don't have to, but it'd be disingenuous. Because I'm willing to bet about 90% of you who are watching this are like, God, what an idiot. And you'd kind of be right. I mean, you know, I don't claim to be the smartest one in the bunch, but I do make good ice cream. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, just before I blended it, I actually added the guar gum. Remember the guar gum that I use? Yeah, just before I blended it, I added my guar gum. And that'll actually help with the ice crystals. It'll make it a smoother texture, which I love. And that's it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this, I'm going to cover the surface with some plastic wrap. I'm going to put this in the fridge, and give it 12 hours. And then after 12 hours, I'll be able to put it in my ice cream machine and churn it according to the manufacturer's instructions. Bada bing, bada boom. I love working with chocolate, but it does make a mess. I tend to get chocolate everywhere. Which, let's face it, there are worse things to get splattered around your kitchen, am I right? That is some seriously rich sorbetto. Hard to believe there's no dairy in it whatsoever. Wow.